Force-E divers, thank you for tuning in tonight. We have an exciting presentation, so buckle up and let's get started. So you know the drill. If you've watched a Facebook Live, we like to know who is here listening to us. So say hello by commenting hello in the comments and where you're listening in from. Okay, I'm a little worried that nobody has signed in yet. Is this actually live? Okay, good. I see some people. Say hello to us so we know that you can hear us and where you're coming. There we go. People can see us now. Awesome. We had a little technical difficulty before. That's why we didn't start right on 6:30. So say hello to us and also give us our thumbs up, our heart emoji. There's the hearts. Or our smiley face to let us know that you're enjoying tonight's presentation. Thank you all for coming out to the Force-E annual tent sale during Labor Day weekend. We love seeing you guys and hope everyone got a really great deal on dive gear. What a great fun weekend, not just at our tent in Riviera, but down in our Fort Lauderdale location. We had demo day, we had scooters, full face masks, cell phone housings. It was so much fun that we're going to try and bring some more demo stuff to you guys here soon. So make sure you're tuning in and watching what we're doing these next couple of months. And also, it's Goliath grouper season. So if you want to get out there and dive with the big giant fish, give us a call. We can get you booked any day of the week, but we do have some special trips planned. We have one this Saturday, still have 5 spots left on the boat. So go to www.force-e.com and check out the cool events that we have planned and come dive with us. All right, so thank you all for saying hello and where you're logging in from. And we're really excited about tonight's topic. So if you have any questions about the topic, just go ahead and write them in the comments section, and myself or Teddy will give you guys an answer. If we don't answer it, it's probably because we already covered it, or we'll answer it at the end. So without further ado, I have Teddy from Force-E Boynton. Hey, Ted.
Hey, guys. Very excited to share the Avelo system with all of you tonight.
Awesome. So yeah, the topic is the Avelo system, and we did a social, and a few of you guys came out and got to see it in person, but we noticed that a lot of people wanted to see this on Facebook Live because they're not able to get into the store. So what we're going to do is give you some information about the system. We're also going to allow Ted to kind of show you the system on the camera. So sit tight. We've got a great presentation for you. All right, Ted. The floor is yours.
All right. Do you have the PowerPoint up there? Or?
Yep. It's there.
Okay, it's just showing a blue screen for me. Sorry.
That's okay. It's there, though.
Okay. Yeah, so I think the first part of the PowerPoint had just a quick little video or clip, just kind of showing a little bit about the Avelo system for people that aren't familiar with the system. For those of you that, if the video doesn't show up or we can't see it, it's essentially a dive system that's going to be half the weight of what we're used to diving. It's going to be much easier for people to learn as well. It's more streamlined. It significantly improves your air consumption as well, which can make it a longer dive. It can also be safer than standard scuba. We don't have the additional the increased or rapid ascents and descents that we get with the BCD. So we actually don't have any air bladder like a BCD has. So removing that is going to basically, give us a wider range of neutral buoyancy in the water.
Okay, there we go.
If you want to go to the first slide for me, Nicole.
Oh. Okay, hold on. This is a video, right?
Yeah, if not, then I can just go to the next slide too. That's fine.
Okay. I need to pull it up on a different, hold on. Sorry,
Okay.
everyone, technical difficulties. All right, there we go. And Let's bring it in over here and let's see if it solos and we can play it. All right, let's try that. Okay, let me
Cool.
get
Thank
you
you,
back on
Nicole.
your slide here. 1 second. Okay. All right, so for some reason I see the PowerPoint. You're not seeing it, are you?
No, that's okay. Is it just showing a picture of the hydro tank
Yeah.
or? Okay, I'm not sure if other people can see it as well.
No, it's showing a blue screen, but I'll try and fix that. But if you want to go ahead and start talking.
Yeah, that's okay. So basically, as you see in the video, it looks like there's not a lot of gear on you compared to normal scuba. There's essentially two different components that create the Avelo system. So the first one's going to be the hydro tank, which is about the whole set's kind of like a ballast system. So just like how a submarine works, basically we have this carbon fiber composite tank, which allows it to handle a very high pressure. But there we go. Cool. So this tank it allows us to handle much higher pressure than we're normally used to with standard scuba. And being a carbon fiber composite tank, it makes it much more lightweight. So often even still, even though I dive this system all the time, when I pick up a tank, I always double check it because it feels like the tank's empty because it's so light. When you get up from off the boat or when you're walking with it, it doesn't feel like much weight at all. You barely even notice it. So it really makes it a much more lightweight and streamlined system. Inside of the tank, you can see like in the photo, we have a bladder. So we have a flexible material, just like the rubber of any of your regulator hoses, that's gonna basically be the same shape as the tank, and it's gonna fill the interior of that tank under pressure. So even in my hand here, if you can see, this is just a small little corner piece off the top of one of the bladders. So it's a nice flexible material that you can just like a hose off a regulator or anything like that. And this little collar on the top catches onto what we call the polar boss, a different fitment than you're used to for the tanks that we normally dive. So what happens is this bladder basically fills the entire interior wall of the tank. And when it's under pressure, it's going to fill the walls and everything. And as we're diving, so with standard scuba, we generally have, depending on the tank, 5 to 10 pounds of air in those scuba cylinders. So when we're diving standard scuba, we're always overweighted because as we consume the air from the tank, we're getting lighter. So we need the extra weight in our BCDs to basically balance ourselves out. With the Avelo system or with this hydro tank, you're essentially using the other component, the jetpack, with this hydro tank to pump water into the tank that's going to be separated from the bladder. So it'll be on the outside versus the inside, which is going to hold the water. Hold the air. The outside will have the water, and it'll run a 1 minute cycle. You can always shut that 1 minute cycle off early if you decide to do so. But the 1 minute cycle adds about 1 liter of water to that tank, which is about 2 pounds. So with a traditional aluminum 80 tank, there's a little bit over 6 pounds of air in that tank. So if you kind of imagine using the hydro tank with, let's say, 6 pounds of air in it, maybe every 20 to 30 minutes, someone might run that pump and add water into the tank. So the learning curve is very simple. You just have to know where the button is to run the pump. And then there's a purge on the other side to let water out if you do over pump the tank. But besides that, you don't have to adjust anything. There's no air bladder. So you're going to be neutrally buoyant at all depths. You're basically adding water into this tank to make yourself the same weight as the water you're displaced in. If you look at the bottom, we do have the cage of the tank, which this just generally holds the tank, but it's also a spot that we can use to add more weight to the tank if we want to, besides adding weight to the gear. You'll notice when you're diving the system that the amount of weight you'll need compared to standard scuba is also significantly less. So for myself, I actually don't even use any weight when I dive the system. I actually take one of these foam pads, like you see here, and actually add this to the back plate to give myself a little bit more positive buoyancy. One of our other instructors in the shop, he was diving with a 7-8 millimeter wetsuit, and he used 1 pound. I'd say, neutral any depth. Yep, I've been 120 feet and gone all the way to your safety stop and neutral the whole time. I think the most I've seen people use of the system is maybe 5 pounds. It can be more than that, of course, depending on the individual, but the average is somewhere between 1 to 4 pounds for most people that I see using the system. And then if you are more lightweight, or you're just more of a sinker, you're just a natural sinker, if you jumped in the water without any gear, it might be useful to use that foam pad to give yourself a little bit more positive buoyancy. Like you can see on the right side of the diagram, there's a little poppet on the bottom. Kind of looks like that little screw in the middle. And what that's doing is it's keeping the bladder from overexpanding. So that picture right there is essentially showing a little bit of water in the tank. But if, Nicole, you want to go to the next slide for me, you can see on the left side, that would be the tank when it's completely full of air and there's no water in it. So you can see that poppet's kind of closed on the bottom. And then the photo on the right is showing essentially some of the water in the tank. So that poppet pushes up when the pressure of the water goes up against it, creates space for that water to get into the tank, and that'll make the weight difference in your gear as you need to adjust your buoyancy. If you'd like to go for the next slide for me, Nicole, that'd be great. Cool. All right, so this is the jetpack, and no, it's not a propulsion device, unfortunately, but diving with a DPV or scooter with this Avelo system is it's incredible because you're neutral at all depths. So you can swim where you want to go, and you don't have to worry about the BC expanding and pulling you up, or dropping you a little bit quicker as well. So I do have a jetpack right here next to me that you guys can see as well too. So we have the space here on the side, this little cradle. This is what's going to hold our battery pack. It's a 50-volt lithium-ion smart battery that on average, I would say probably puts, you can probably pump it, depending on the individual and how hard you're running the pump, 10 to 15 times. But you're only really going to use it maybe 2 or 3 times on a dive. So often, I'll do both dives on a boat trip and I'll still have a green battery. We do also have, this is the battery pack that goes with it as well too. So see if they have the cool Avelo A on it, some information on the side here, and there's this little dot here as well. So the way that we're going to install this into the Avelo system or on this jetpack, you can see on the battery pack here, there's this little arrow. So this arrow is an indicator on what direction we want to put the battery in. If we want to put the battery in to use it, we have the A here on the Avelo. The tip of that A just simply lines up with the tip of the arrow. If we want to put in a travel mode, so let's say we're going to the boat or something like that, and we just want to store it on the jetpack, but we don't want to actively use any of the juice of the battery, we can turn it towards the little dot on this side, if you guys can see that there, and have that dot lined up with the arrow. We have some false connections on the top so that it can connect properly, but it's not going to affect the run time of the battery. The batteries do last quite a bit of time, and if you also did need to charge it in a pinch, probably within 20-25 minutes, you can get a pretty significant charge with it. Within about 45 minutes, you can basically have a full battery from empty. So if I line this up here, so that the A is with that arrow, I do have on the bottom of here a little space that I can slide the cradle in. So if I pull this up, I can take right here and I can pull this up and that'll click the battery in. And I have this little Velcro I can pull over here too to secure it. If you look at the top, you can see a little green light indicator. That's going to indicate that we have a good amount of battery. And it'll change to red. In the future, they will be changing this to have more multiple dots to kind of show a general level of power you have. On this side, we do also have the pump. So this is a 4,000 RPM running pump, which is going to pull the water in through these little holes on the side here. And it's going to run it down this piece here. This is a quick disconnect, just like you're used to on a BCD. And that's going to attach to a hydraulic hose, which is basically attached to the cage or the bottom of our hydro tank. That's what's going to pull the water into the tank to be able to change our buoyancy or make those micro adjustments if we need it. This little wheel right here is going to be how we can open or close the purge. So having it slid all the way down or away from you is going to be open, kind of like you're pushing a door open and away from you. Pulling it up towards your body is going to be closed. So when we run the pump, if we have it closed, the water will go into the tank. If we over pump and we're a little bit heavy, or when we finish the dive, we just want to be more positively buoyant and lighter, we can just simply open this, roll it away, and it'll let some of that water out through here. On the other side too, on the bottom, this little button here, you can see runs the pump. So it's kind of like an elevator button. So it's not like a touch screen. We can just lightly touch it. Just give it a little bit of pressure and it'll run for you. We do have a little bit different setup as well too. So on the harness too, there's a lot of this MOLLE fitment as well too. So you can put all different types of connections on there too. We still have our D-rings as well, just like you have on a BCD. So on the waist as well, we have the same thing. So there's lots of different ways you can customize your attachments, just the same as a BCD. It's just much more minimal. You really don't feel like you're wearing anything at all with it. You can put your weight on the side here. They can kind of get attached through these little Velcro pieces here, as well as the cage on the hydro tank as well. We do have also our tank valve strap, just like our traditional BCD that we're used to. And then this one has a crossbar strap. So this crossbar strap on the bottom is going to wrap onto a little bar on the bottom of the cage of that hydro tank, which I can show as well. And then honestly, just having the tank valve strap and that crossbar strap secured on the hydro tank, you don't even technically need a tank strap on the back. We do still have one. It just provides more security if we did need it. But it's one of those things that even without it, the system's very stable and secure. We do also have on the back of the aluminum plate here. So of course we want everything to be as light as possible, so they do aluminum. They do also have a buddy check list on the back here. So if you forget any of the general procedures for setting up this equipment, it's all listed right on the back as well. If you could go to the next slide for me, Nicole, that would be great. It's all listed right on the back as well. Cool. So Avelo mode. So with the Avelo system, they have a special mode for this system to use on your dive computer. At the moment, it is just Shearwater and Scuba Pro that carry them. Shearwater has been the more popular option between the two. It does have different modes as well too: training, performance, and custom. So depending on how you want your system set up or what information is most useful to you, you can display it on the screen as well. So one thing that you might see from this photo as well too is you have your pressure, but then you have the gas percentage. So when you are diving the system, when you run water into the tank, it is basically compressing that bladder a little bit. So you might see your pressure increase. So seeing your pressure increase is great because you know it's an indicator that that pump is actually running and placing water in the tank versus it just flushing out or having a water leak with the system. Um, but the gas percentage is great on the Avelo system because even when you see your pressure increase, your percentage of air in your tank stays the same. So you don't have a false sense of more air. Granted, if you don't have this Avelo mode on your computer, you can always get a fairly accurate reading. It might be like 2 or 300 psi off from what you normally have, but because it's compressing the air, it's a lower volume tank. You know, you have a tank inside of a tank essentially that's getting smaller. So um, if we've all used different tank sizes, you know that the smaller the tank is, sometimes the quicker that pressure drops. So even though it might seem like you have more air, the pressure change will also kind of balance itself out. You do need a transmitter to run this system because there's a lot of active stuff going on with it, and there is an unlock code that is an additional purchase, but it's not too much. I think it's like 90 for the unlock code at the moment, and they will be adding more dive computers with this throughout the future. Another cool feature with this Avelo Mode 2, which if you look, it's probably the third row down in the center where it says plus 0.7. There's a buoyancy indicator on this as well too. So when you're diving the system, as soon as you exhale and your head's below the water, you're already neutrally buoyant. Like an inch below the water, you're already neutral. So you have to swim down to, you know, because you can control where you're going a little bit more versus dumping the air and having the BC sink you and being a little bit more passive with it. So that buoyancy indicator, what you can do is when you get to depth, if you feel nice and neutral, awesome. If you feel like you need to adjust your weight a little bit, you can run that pump to make yourself a little bit heavier to balance yourself out. Or you can always dump a little bit of water if you did pump at the surface. And once you feel neutral, you can reset that buoyancy there, and it'll, you know, bounce it out to zero point 0.0, so neutrally buoyant. And then as you consume air from the tank, what it's going to do is that buoyancy start to become more positive. Or if you're swimming deeper as well, it also will basically tell you that you're becoming a little bit more negative. So depending on your depth in the water and your air consumption, it'll basically adjust your buoyancy. So it basically gives you an indicator on when you're becoming lighter and might need to run that pump a little bit more. Or it's just kind of a mental note that you're a little bit lighter. So maybe if you're going to do a swim through into a wreck or something, it might be good to run that pump a little bit. Maybe if you're a lobster and you feel like you're a little bit higher, you can always just run that pump too to kind of get yourself a little bit lower as well. But yeah, the Avelo mode, it's very useful and it's really fun to use and kind of play with it. I've had even before too where I took a warm fill just from the shop right on the boat, and it was interesting to see within the first 4 to 5 minutes that my pressure dropped like 11% in the first 4 minutes, just because of the temperature change. You know that the gas in the tank changing. So. Um, but yeah, very interesting mode, and it'll be available on more computers as time goes on. They have it mainly on the Terek at the moment for shearwater, but within the next month or two, or by the end of the year, they plan on having on the Peregrine TX and some other air integrated ones as well. Nicole, you are welcome to go to the next slide for me. So how do you dive the Avelo system? So there is a little link here if Nicole would like to click on it. If it doesn't show up, it might not, because this might also be from my Avelo Academic. So if it doesn't show up, I can simply explain it. But if it does show up, then awesome. That'd be really cool to see.
It doesn't show up. It's making me go to where I need to log in.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So diving the Avelo system, very simple. All we have to do is when we jump in the water, we're already neutral. You basically have swimmer's buoyancy. So if you ever jump in the pool or jump off the back of a boat or anything, you're in the ocean. You don't just sink like a rock to the bottom, right? You're still slightly positively buoyant, and you can always change your weighting a little bit as well to make yourself feel a little bit more positive if you need so as well. All you do is when you simply get in the water, you'll either be kind of shoulder level, or depending if you're exhaling or not, shoulder to forehead level in the water. All you have to do is just exhale so that your head's below the water. And then once your head's below the water, you're already neutral. From there, you can just swim down and start your dive. And as you get, if you feel like, I would say the closest way to relate is you've ever been on a dive and you can do the whole dive perfectly fine, but you felt a little light. It would have been nice to have an extra pound maybe. That's kind of how you'll feel with the Avelo system when you're breathing a little bit of the air out of the tank. So from that point, you just simply go back and you just press that little button on the back of the hydro tank, let it run, and it'll be almost equivalent to, instead of someone handing you, if you've ever had somebody hand you weight underwater, instead of it just being like a 2 or 3 or like a larger increment, it's almost like those little fishing weights. It's like someone's handing you fishing weights one at a time. So your buoyancy is being adjusted very slowly, but it's more fine tuned. You can sit there and wait while it's running, and once you get to that point where you just feel perfectly neutral, you can simply just shut off that button on the pump, and you're back to neutral again. You don't have to touch or adjust or do anything when you're diving because you're neutral at all depths. So you simply just swim down after you exhale on the surface, and just have fun. When you're heading back towards the top too, just remember to monitor your ascent rate, because you don't have to worry about dumping air from RBC. So you're basically just kicking yourself back up, go to the safety stop, and then when you arrive back on the surface, any water you pumped in the tank, you're just going to want to dump back out. So that photo that you'll see also in the PowerPoint, that's what it looks like when the water gets dumped out of the tank. So every time I'm on the boat, someone's always asking me, what's all that fog or smoke or whatever coming out of the tank? It's just little air bubbles kind of mixed with the salt water that you put in the tank. And the pressure in your tank is pushing that bladder back down, which is basically pushing that water back out of the hydraulic hose and out into the water. And they're very small little holes that the water's coming out of. So the pressure with the air bubbles kind of makes almost like a foam. So when that foam kind of gets spread into the water, it just kind of has that smoky look to it. When you are on the surface too, you are going to be lighter than when you started because you have breathed some of the air out of your tank. But if you do want yourself to be a little bit more positive buoyancy, because I know a lot of us are very used to diving with our BCDs and having that extra little bit of float on the surface. The jetpack also does have an SMB built right into the system. So it's already clipped, so you can simply unroll this. And there is a little clip inside of here too that you can basically take this, and when you inflate it, you can wrap it around the top of the jetpack. You can clip it onto this other clip on the side of your waist. And then there is also a Velcro that goes across the center. So you can turn the SMB into like a snorkel vest, essentially. Or you can hold it like a pool noodle, but it will give you some extra flotation if you need it. A lot of the time I don't need it, but if you're waiting for a while or you just want to kind of float a little bit on the surface, you can always just add that as well too, to make it a little bit easier to keep yourself float, or if you want to just be a little bit more relaxed on the surface. But just like if you're swimming in a pool or floating along, it's not like we jump in a pool and we just start freaking out. We know we can float and that we're okay. It'll be the same thing with this system as well. So it's almost kind of also like free diving, if anybody free dives that's watching. But you can breathe the whole time. So you have that freedom of free diving without the bulk of all the standard scuba, without the weight of standard scuba, without the rapid depth changes that you get with standard scuba. So it basically jump in, just run the pump if you need it, and have some fun with it. But yeah, very simple and easy to use. It also is more streamlined. So when you are diving with it, because we don't have this air bladder on our back, that can also change our buoyancy, or create more unstable buoyancy. It does also have less drag as well too. So I've been on shipwrecks before and people are talking about how strong the current is. And I'm kind of just sitting still because I don't have that big wing getting pushed as well in the current. So it does that make nicer that way as well too. If you want to go to the next slide, Nicole, that'd be great. So this is a couple kind of comparisons between standard scuba versus the Avelo system. So our equipment with standard scuba, of course, this can vary on the individual, but on average is around 70 to 75 pounds when we're using those aluminum and steel tanks, the bulkier BCs. So we also have back plates that can have, a little bit of extra bulk to them as well too. And all the weight we have to add to overweight ourselves to keep us neutrally buoyant with the BCD. The Avelo system averages probably more around 40 pounds, so it's significantly less, and you really do notice it when you're diving it. So yeah, it is about a little bit less than half the, well, more than half the weight, but it feels about half the weight, or it feels less than half the weight when you're actually wearing it. The BCD we have with standard scuba, we're all very used to or familiar with that. Versus the jetpack, you do get a more narrow range of neutral buoyancy with the BC. And, a lot of us out there that are probably watching too, we dive quite a bit. And, I'm sure we feel just fine with the BCD and we're very comfortable with our buoyancy. But even diving the Avelo system, as much as I dive and as comfortable as I feel in a BCD, when I switch back to a BC, I do notice how much more stable my neutral buoyancy is with the Avelo system and that jetpack. You do get more drag with the BCD as well, versus you have less drag because there's less equipment that's getting kind of caught in the flow in the water and stuff as well. BCs are usually less streamlined. You have a more streamlined setup with the jetpack. We've all seen too people that have, we've seen people that have either sunk really quick and they have trouble equalizing, or when they're starting their ascent, they do start to float up a little too quick and sometimes even unfortunately skip their safety stop. So we do have more control with the Avelo system because wherever you swim to is where you go. You're not going to float up or have any rapid depth changes in the water. And what that also helps with is also your workload. So, with the BC or with our standard scuba, a lot of us are comfortable, but we also do sometimes have to change our breathing a little bit more to compensate for our BC or our different equipment. Versus you have less workload, or people do notice an improved air consumption with the Avelo system. Since your buoyancy is so much more stable, you don't have to really do anything except just breathe normally, and you don't have to fight the current as much because of the reduction of drag. Another big thing too is, even not too long ago, people on the boat, their BCD will pop or have an issue or more of a malfunction. Air is leaking out of the inflator, which also can increase some stress in some divers as well. Any of the malfunctions with the Avelo system are not an emergency. And when you do the certification for it, we kind of simulate what some of those malfunctions might be, which would be things like a continuously running pump. So if you ran that pump and it just never shut off, or if you had a water leak where all of the water in your tank just leaked out. So you're basically removing all that weight you added in. And neither of them are actually an emergency. They're very easy to adjust when you feel the differences in your buoyancy. The main thing is you might feel, if you have a continuously running pump, you might feel like you're a couple pounds heavier than you'd like to be. But you can also even just open the purge to let the water out so that you're keeping yourself a little bit more neutral. And, that battery will end up running out, and then you don't have to worry about your buoyancy being off. The water leak as well, that'd be if you're moving all the weight from the tank. And the worst you'll feel is like if you're a pound or so lighter than you'd like to be, but you can still do the dive. If the battery shuts off too, or if you disconnect something, the other main thing you might do is you could, for the course, we do replacing the gear underwater in a little bit shallower section. So we do know that you're comfortable with being able to remove the gear and examine it if there was something that was going on with it. But everything's very easy to maintain with it. All you have to do after the dive, which I do see a few people's questions about cleaning the tank, or if the button jams and stuff like that. If the button jams, it's not an emergency. You can simply open the purge to let water out of it so that it's not going to make you too heavy. But even if you're a little bit on the heavier side, a lot of us diving in BC are used to feeling a little bit heavier. It'll be like if you're diving your BC, and it'd be nice to have like an extra little burst or two more of air to your BC. That's kind of what it'll feel a bit more like. Cleaning the jetpack and tank is very simple. A lot of the spots we do dive on boats and stuff, you do see how they have the big tubs that the freshwater rinse bins. All you do for the system is you simply just throw it in the rinse bin, make sure the purge is closed, and you just run one of the 1 minute cycles on the pump. Once you finish running that 1 minute cycle, you just open the purge and let all that water back out. So you're just doing a freshwater rinse inside of the tank and through all the equipment, and that's all that really needs to be done for cleaning it. Let's see, if you want to go to the next slide, Nicole. So some different questions that are very common, which might be some that I've seen that might have occurred little bit earlier on here, or maybe if anyone else has any questions too, this can kind of be a little more of an open-ended discussion to kind of answer any questions. So a lot of these things that I see here for questions are common ones that people do ask because it is a very new system. So, even one that you see on the top, what does this mean for the future of diving? So, diving the system, it has so much room for and potential to make diving safer and easier. And a lot of people that we've all seen or heard of people that just can't get their buoyancy right, or it's discouraging, trying all different equipment out, they can't find what fits them right. So this just simplifies diving and makes it safer and easier and more fun. You do get more freedom with it, and the technological side of it also can give us so many other directions it can go. So, for an example, even like the pump and the battery, over time they'll get more compact and make the system even lighter. They are also working on an even lighter version and newer version of the dive tanks as well too, those hydro tanks. And then even things too like the Avelo system or the Avelo mode on the computer, the buoyancy indicator. There's a chance in the future that you might even be able to just either communicating with your watch. It might even ask you if you want the tank to automatically adjust your buoyancy for you. So right now it can tell if you're over or under running the pump to get back to where you felt neutral. But in the future, maybe you just click a button and it'll just bring you back to right where you felt neutral. It might kind of already be able to adjust how much water to add based on the individual's preference as well. A lot of other different ways that it can improve as well too. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff when you start learning about it, and there's also a buoyancy diagram tool you can use to show when I'm diving with people and I use the system with them, they get to see their profile with the Avelo system, and you can see every single thing a person's doing from if they run that pump for a second and shut it off. You can tell when they run the purge. You can tell what they were probably doing at a certain point in the dive based on their workload. So it kind of helps even with the safety side of things. We can kind of start to see a trend in divers because the Avelo mode also does upload to the Avelo website, and they're kind of creating a database of different information with the system as well too, and the way that different divers perform in the water. Another one too that people are always asking, I've seen in there, is if I can buy the equipment. A lot of people always hear, I can't buy the equipment. Why can't I buy it? When will it be available? It's already available. There's a few different packages that they have available that you can purchase for it. Some of them have more batteries than others. Some might be like just the jetpack, like you saw. Other ones will be a jetpack with a couple batteries and the charger and different things like that. Other little additions. And then the tanks too. A lot of people think that you can't buy the tanks. You can technically buy the tanks if you want. They are just not a cheap purchase. And talking to the inventor and CEO himself, he's saying that he would personally recommend waiting because they are making a newer, upgraded version of the tank. So if you want to buy a tank now, sure, you can buy the tank. Um, but it just would make more sense for most people to wait because then that way they're not getting something that's outdated. The systems do also need to be dove fairly consistently, at least once a month, because those bladders do like to stay wet to keep in better condition. It is also a little bit pricier as far as an inspection because every visual inspection we change the bladder out, even if it's not necessary. They've done tests where they've cut and ripped and done, ripped the whole bottom half off vertically and horizontally, and the system still works just fine with all mangled bladder inside of it, but it's still just part of that inspection. If people did want to take the tank somewhere too where they didn't have the Avelo systems available, it would probably be a good idea for them to also do a technician course on it. That way they could, if they did have to bring the tank on a plane or flying with it, then they are able to disassemble the valve off of it and reassemble it. It has specific torque modes, specific torques and stuff that should be followed. Um, so it's just one of those things that there's a little bit more that goes into it than just what meets the eye. But if somebody does want to buy the tank, they can. We are going to be offering, and we already offer the systems for rental here, but we're going to be offering different kind of like an Avelo Club system where you can either weekly or monthly pay to be able to have these systems available to you whenever you want. And what that helps also provide for you is that the tank's going to be dove more consistently, so you don't have to worry about it drying out. Any malfunctions with that tank too, we're going to take care of. Same with all the inspections as well too. So instead of spending the extra money on your own tank, you might as well kind of just wait till they get a little more cost effective and they start producing more and they have that newer version out. But yeah, all this stuff's available. You can purchase the jetpacks through us. You can rent the systems through us and all of that stuff. Other question you'll see in here too is, can I travel with it? Yeah, you can travel with all of the stuff if you want. Most people, what they're doing at the moment is if they are getting the system, they'll just purchase the jetpacks for now and the batteries and all that. You can travel with the batteries and everything. Yes, you can fill the tanks anywhere and stuff as well too, Andrew. Um, they are just a DIN. You do need a DIN regulator, so that is the one thing that's kind of a little bit different. We do have DIN regulator rentals here at the shop too, but yeah, for traveling with it, it's fairly lightweight. Especially compared to what you're used to diving with. You can travel with the battery packs and stuff as well too. And the Avelo company, they're starting to kind of create a lot more exposure to the system. It's the momentum force picking up very quickly. So they already have it in all different spots here in Florida, mainly 4C for in the mainland, and then they do have in the Keys as well too. They have it over in Bonaire. They have it over in Catalina in California. They have it in New Mexico. They have it in Spain. They have it in Australia. They have a handful of other spots that they're already in the works on exposing the system to. So the idea for a lot of people right now is that they're purchasing the jetpacks and that they are just using the tanks at the different Avelo dive centers. But you could also bring the tanks with you if you didn't have accessibility to it, and they could fill it just with a DIN attachment. And then how and when can you get recreational Avelo divers certified, RAD certified? So for here at 4C, you can sign up at any of our stores. I do teach the system and how to dive it. It's essentially a 2-dive specialty course. So there is academic material you're going to read. And then it's a 2-dive specialty that we go off the boat. We usually dive with around a 60-foot profile because we want you to see the magic of the system and how much of a depth change you can make without your buoyancy being affected at all. I do have my next or closest course is going to be September 22nd. However, I do have a list of all different courses. They're traditionally on Sunday and Mondays, but if there's anyone that has interest in it and Sundays and Mondays don't work, I do have all different availability and stuff to do the course. I do private or different group classes for it, and it's a lot of fun. The course costs that we have, it does include the academics, it includes all of the equipment, it includes the instruction, and it includes the boat trip. So everything's all included in that cost as well. But yeah, if anybody has any questions on the system, I would love to hear other questions, or I can try and check if there's other ones I missed.
Okay. So, hey, I'm back. All right. Yeah, so they did have a question about is a carbon fiber tank safe and how many dives can you do with it?
Yeah, so it's actually safer than the tanks we're used to. So I mean, a lot of fire department uses carbon fiber tanks actually. When they're running into fires and they need to breathe off of fresh air supply. This tank, it can technically handle up to, I have one actually right here, but they can technically actually handle up to around 15,000 psi, which is a lot higher than what we're going to be able to get any of our equipment to. The valve too, I wonder if I can get it on there, but the service pressure of the valve is 4,350. So compared to aluminum 80, that's 3,000 psi. We can fill these a lot higher. We can technically fill these as high as your regulator can handle. We usually just try not to exceed that because we don't want to cause any issues with our first stage if we're bringing it to a higher pressure than that regulator is designed to be used at. The burst disc on this for, with the tank and blow it is 7,250. And then in addition to that too, so, you always hear about, aluminum or steel tanks, they could explode and it can be like the pressure of a grenade or two. Since these are like a carbon fiber woven tank, they actually, if they were to, explode, they'd more kind of rip or tear open. They wouldn't just like rupture and explode. So it does make it a safer tank. And just like anything, as far as how many dives you can do with it, you can do a lot of dives with it. It just matters on how well the tank is taken care of. Just like your aluminum tank, if you're putting big gashes or dents in it, it's not going to last as long. And then just even like with the normal tank dive wise, depends on everyone's air consumption, what depth they're diving. That's going to affect how long that tank lasts as far as the air in it.
So just to clarify, everybody, you need 2 of those tanks if you're doing a 2-tank dive. So you don't do one tank for 2 dives, in case anybody wasn't clear. The other thing too, is there a depth rating for those tanks?
Depth rating. It would be pretty similar to other stuff. I mean, they've tested all this up to around 660 feet. So for recreational scuba diving, no one should be going that deep for, as we know. So for any depths that you would do for recreational diving, it's perfectly safe, and it'll exceed those depths by far.
Well, I have a feeling some of our tech divers out there want to know, how can I mount these and make doubles and make this
Everybody asks about doubles, and they want to find out how to get their pony bottles neutral and all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, and that could be something in the future as well too. It's still new, and there's so many ways that the system can be improved and kind of fine tuned and kind of branch off of it to give more ideas for the future of diving as well.
Also, let's go back over to the course to get certified. What is the prerequisite for someone to get certified?
Yeah, so the prerequisite is you just need to be open water certified. So at the moment you can't start learning scuba with this. That is something down the line that could be a possibility. And then how we're doing a 2-dive specialty for the Avelo system now, it could be a 2-dive specialty to get certified to use or a specialty course. Might not be 2 dives. I'm not making the course for it, but a 2-dive specialty or a specialty course for a BCD. So if somebody learns to dive with the Avelo, and a lot of places that they dive with it have it, but they're traveling somewhere that doesn't have the available, then they'll be able to also use a BCD as well.
And also a lot of training agencies are actually saying that you can do other types of dives with an Avelo system. So like, say you wanted to take the wreck diver course, you can use an Avelo for the course.
Correct.
So there's a lot of agencies that are acknowledging that this system can be used.
Absolutely. Yeah. All different agencies are on board with it. Divers Alert Network is all on board with it. Dan Orr actually had the idea of that surface marker buoy to kind of turn into that flotation. So that's a little bit of his kind of work that kind of also went into the system. So there's a lot of higher ups between the agencies and different things that have put their efforts into kind of also making the system work and making it safer and even better. So you can.
Do you know if because if some people have, say, Dan or Dive Assure insurance, accident insurance, does it cover if you're on an Avelo system?
It does, yeah. It's open circuit, just like scuba we do, so it is covered. Yep, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then everyone wants to know, will you ever go back to a traditional BCD and tank?
I still have to teach. So I do have to dive with I'd hate to be like, oh, too bad you can't dive this, and like try to show them where the deflate is, and I don't have one. So of course, for when I'm teaching, I'm gonna use a BCD so that they have the same visual reference. Everything makes a little more sense, and demonstration wise, it's a little more clear for students. But if I'm not teaching and I'm fun diving, I pretty much use this if I can. I mean, it makes it just so much more simple. Not that scuba, if we dive quite a bit, it's muscle memory at a certain point. You're used to it. But this guy, like, you just jump in and just go. You just have fun. You don't have to really worry about anything or worry about if your BC is going to expand and pull you up to the top, or if you're going to sink too quickly. And your buoyancy is just extremely stable. You don't feel like you're wearing anything, basically. It's a really fun system to dive with.
Okay, and one more burning question. For everybody who loves to dive the shallow Blue Heron Bridge, how is it diving those shallow sites?
It's great. I dove it there yesterday even too. I think I sent you a couple of videos, Nicole. They might not pull up, but one of them, even in like 3 or 4 feet of water, I overran the pump so that I had more water weight than I would have needed to keep myself neutral. And I was still neutral. I turned around, I dumped all of the water out of the tank, and I was still neutral. Um, yeah, it's great for there. I mean, shore diving, people never, it's never fun for people, especially if you're at the Blue Heron Bridge in the back corner of the lot on a busy day with the sun burning and, you're sweating like 2 car lengths down. You still have to go, another 100 car lengths down to get into the water, dragging all the heavy gear. So, it's so much lighter. I barely feel like I'm wearing anything when I'm wearing it. So it's a lot lighter. So it's nice just for the fact of you're carrying less weight. And then yeah, when you get in the water, you can walk waist deep and then just go into a diver's position, 3 feet in the water, and you're already neutral, and you can just go where you want.
Okay, and one more thing, a little PSA. If you ever see pictures or videos of Ted or anybody diving them, you're going to probably notice that the first stage of the DIN regulator looks like it's on backwards. It's supposed to be like that, right, Ted?
Yes. So you can technically dive the system either way, but from trial and error, it just makes more sense for it to be backwards because if certain people don't even adjust their BCs right, if you ever felt the first stage kind of bumping the back of your head, this just creates more space between your head and the valve of the tank, and it puts the first stage farther back versus being right behind your head. So it just creates less issues or discomfort than if you had it the other way. So you could dive it either way, sure, but it makes more sense and it's more comfortable to just have it backwards. Same thing with the positioning of the hydraulic hose. Just makes it easier for connecting the stuff as well too.
It's funny. I posted a few photos, to get people aware of tonight's presentation. They're like, they have the regulator on backwards. I'm like, nope, it's supposed to be that way.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And that's one of the things too, when people first learn to dive the system, it's just a 2 dive specialty. So just like if you remember when you got open water certified, you're not a master right out of the gate, you learn all the tools to be able to become a better diver and to be a safe diver. Same thing with the system, so you learn all the tools, how to effectively dive it, but you're still probably going to start to put the tank on backwards, which is actually forwards, but you're probably going to accidentally put it on the wrong way, or you might forget to connect the hydraulic hose. Little things like that I do see when people are first learning it. So yeah, just the more you dive the system, you get your weighting more fine-tuned, or you realize that instead of needing a few pounds, you don't need any weight, which just makes it even better. But yeah, the more you dive it, the more fun it gets. I've tried to dive it in every possible scenario because everyone wonders if it's safe this way or that, and yeah.
And you can dive it in wetsuits. You can dive it in dry suits. So
you can, yeah. Yep. Yeah. So when you do the course, there's a formula there that it basically you can do a certain your body weight basically, and there's a chart to show the different wetsuit thicknesses in different sizes, and subtracted by 6 or 8 depending on the situation, and it'll show you generally how much weight you're going to need to dive the system. Most people get somewhere between like 1 point something to 3 point something, and it might need to be changed within a couple pounds, but yeah, there's not a lot of weight needed for it, and yeah, it's a very simple system to use.
Awesome. Well, guys, make sure that you check them out. Come into the Force-E Scuba Centers. I think you have one at the Boynton store set up so people can take a look at it. I think one at the Riviera store. But we can definitely get you in. You can check it out, talk to Ted a little bit more, and get signed up for one of his courses. Again, what was the dates?
The soonest one is going to be September 22nd. However, if somebody does want to do something sooner than that, it is a possibility. I had somebody that last Wednesday they want to do a class, and we did one Friday. So yeah,
Awesome.
and and he was 70 years old, and he had a great buoyancy. You can't have bad buoyancy with the system, so it does make it easier to learn.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Ted, for giving a great presentation about the Avelo dive system. We have the Dive Avelo team is on the chat. They've been answering your guys' questions as well. So make sure you follow Dive Avelo on their Facebook and Instagram. Make sure that you go in and talk to Ted at our Boynton store, or actually there's a few of us at Force-E that are certified to dive the Avelo systems. Danny, Roman, Mike, Jeff Nelson, Ryan, Muniz, who am I forgetting? Marcus Aaron, that's right. Yep. So any of your favorite Force-E people, we did definitely go out and try these systems, got the certification, so we can give you also a little bit of our experience with them. So especially if you're into underwater photography, this is the thing to use. It's going to make it so much easier for you. You don't have to deal with your system, and you can go in real quick and get those beautiful photos. So thank you again for tuning in, and we hope to see you in the store soon. See ya, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.